I was on radio the other day, Anna, with Stephen Farry, who's been handling this stuff for Alliance, and with Sandra Peake from Wave. And if I heard and understood Stephen correctly, he was kind of saying that even with amendments, this bill cannot be fixed, that it is so broken and so flawed that even if you changed every reference to review to investigation, that wouldn't be enough. Is that how you would read it?
Well, that's certainly how I would read it, that it is unfixable. And I say that with a heavy heart. As you know, Barney, we've tried very hard, sometimes, stretched colleagues, to try and find pragmatic accommodations that were lawful and so on, all the way along this road. And we read this bill and we read it again and we read it again, and very, very reluctantly we met and agreed that it was unfixable, that there was no possible way we would be proposing amendments, that would, if anything, perhaps only weaken the legal challenges that will undoubtedly come down the road. So my view is that, even as you say, they have taken the word investigation, Article 2 compliant investigation. The word investigation has been cut and pasted out for review. And
you think that's deliberate, do you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, I do. And I think that, even if you were to do a find and replace and put investigation back again, you would want to see that evidence that the Secretary of State's interference in this bill, it's the intent behind it. It's the sense of what is the intent. And I think that's what people find so egregious, and what Colin was alluding to. It's wrapping all of this up in reconciliation, putting reconciliation on the face of this bill and pretending that this is about furthering reconciliation when it's doing precisely the opposite.
As if those conversations had never happened and weren't happening, I suppose, Anna. It's almost presenting this day as the new day for reconciliation, which ignores much of the work that you and others, including the Glencree hosts of this conference, have been involved in.
And in particular, Barney, I think, as you know, I have a real interest in oral history, and I've worked in that area for 20 years and more. And it's one of the things that concerns me most, because you have seen those proposals on oral history and memorialisation now becoming front and centre. Chris Flatt said last year he viewed them as potentially the most important element of the Stormont House Agreement that you would wish to bring forward. They've beefed up those proposals. They're mentioned very deliberately in the memorandum on compliance with the European Convention on Human Rights. And I see it as a cynical way in which, in a space where such good work could be done around acknowledging the human suffering and all that Colin was talking about, where there's so much good work that could be further developed, I see the government in a very, very cynical way beefing up these proposals, saying, here we're going to deliver on the reconciliatory intent of this bill, and it's to provide legal cover for impunity. And I find that deeply, deeply cynical and disconcerting.
Demeans the work that's already happened.
It demeans and denigrates the work that has already been done, and it will do untold damage going forward, because when I used to run projects, people would say, oh, is it anything to do with that Boston College project? Already people are saying, will this be seen to be anything to do with, so you can see that unfolding already.
Just to pick up on that, what you mentioned about reviews or investigations, I was struck whenever I was going over some previous evidence to, I think it was either the Justice Committee or the Northern Ireland Affairs Committee, where the PSNI said that when it looked at the caseload of the Legacy Investigations Branch, it would take 20 years to work through. And we're talking about something here which the government wants done in 5. And even that time frame alone, I think, is a clue to the kind of investigative process that this new body might have in mind, because you're thinking, how can the PSNI say that something potentially would take 20 years to work through 1,100 cases, and yet the entire work of the ICRIR could be done in 5, if not less?
Suggests a racing away from the past. But part of the commentary, and we chatted about this outside, Julian, is this might be our last chance. So however bad the bill is, we've got to try to do something with it. You've heard that, I think it was kind of Declan Morgan's approach, John Boucher's approach.
I was struck by John Boucher saying that, what is uncontested here is that we have been grappling with this issue for a very long period of time, and yes, it should have been addressed long before now. But I think, just like Anna was saying, that how reconciliation and memorialisation is wrapped up around this. I think there is a narrative developing that this is the last chance, and the government saying, well, we're the first government to actually legislate for something in legacy. But of course, a good many people are saying that if this is the last chance, that should not excuse what many see as being a bad piece of legislation. And, you know, John Boucher again last week talked about the ICRIR perhaps being a shop that no one visits.
We'll just tell someone what that is. So that's the Independent Commission on Reconciliation
Yes.
and Information Retrieval.
Yeah, and I suppose, you know, I can see where he's coming from, because such is the absence of buy-in to this legislation from victims and local political parties. You do wonder, if we do have the legislation enacted, who is actually going to use it and who is going to work it.